I hope your week's off to a good start. Today, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, but still directly relates to what you decide to have swimmers do and the activities you plan and the sets you write. We're going to talk a little bit about athlete engagement and ensuring that athletes are both motivated and excited and interested in training. And while we can't necessarily create motivation, we can definitely influence it by the things we ask swimmers to do and the way we go about doing so. So I received two related questions. The first was, how do we get middle school or high school athletes interested in the sport? And the second was, how do we appeal to athletes' self-interest in terms of getting them excited and interested in both doing drills correctly and executing sets correctly? So regardless of whether you coach in either of these contexts or you have these specific problems, this issue applies to all of us. Because no matter who you are, you always have athletes that lose interest at some point. And that's a situation we want to try to avoid. So here's my perspective on it. First of all, most of us are not coaching the next Olympic champion. And even if we are, we have a lot of other athletes that aren't on that path. So while we can often think we need to have the perfect physiological program to help everyone improve to their absolute potential, that's probably not necessarily true. It's okay to let go of that a little bit and face reality. And ironically, that might actually get us all closer to the goals that we have for swimmers and for swimmers to get closer to their goals. So the first reality is that presence is required for progress. And I mean that in a literal sense. If swimmers aren't coming to the pool, they will not get better at swimming, whether that's because they're missing practices or they decide they don't want to swim anymore. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that swimmers actually want to go to practice. It sounds simple, but a lot of times we construct things in a way that makes swimmers not want to come to practice. And the second aspect of presence is they also have to be mentally present. They have to be engaged even when they're there physically. So one, they have to get there physically, and two, when they're there, they need to be mentally present. It's key to progress. If you don't have those two things, no matter what you're doing, swimmers aren't going to improve. So before we worry about the details about how to get them to improve and how to design a perfect training plan, we need to make sure that they're actually showing up. We need to get them there, and we need to get them engaged. And then when we've got that on track, we can worry about the specific training plans. From my experience, there's two things that keep swimmers coming back. One, they want to improve, and so if they feel like they're improving, they're going to continue to swim. And two, they want to have fun. And so if they're continuing to have fun, they're probably going to continue to swim. So those are the two things that we really need to make sure that are present in our practices. They're improving, and it's obvious they're improving, and they're having fun in some way, at least some of the time. So the first aspect, ensuring that they're improving. So when people see progress in anything, they tend to engage more and they tend to work harder. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we're showing them progress as quickly and as soon as possible and as regularly as possible. The idea that they have to wait 6 months and then go to the end of the season meet and then see progress and hopefully see progress, maybe not, that's kind of a tough sell to most people, especially most kids. And unfortunately, some people won't really put in the work until they see some sort of progress. And it's kind of a catch-22 because they have to work to get progress, but they won't work until they get progress. So I think as coaches, we need to find ways to show them that they can improve as quickly and as easily as possible to kind of get them hooked and get them interested in continuing to get better. So one of the first things you do to get people interested and get them engaged is get them making progress in something as quickly as possible in any way possible. And so whatever tricks you have, whatever skills you're really good at teaching, whatever skills you're really good at helping swimmers learn, make sure that swimmers are exposed to those and make sure they can see progress as soon as possible. And from a longer term perspective, have a plan for improvement. Know what skills they need to learn, know what order they need to learn them, and make sure that you can actually help them learn them. And if you have that in place, you're a lot more likely to get kids interested in getting better, and you're much less likely to run into situations where they'd start to stagnate because you've already set out a plan to avoid that from happening. The second aspect of improvement is making sure that the improvement's concrete. So as much as possible, instead of just saying, wow, your stroke looks much better, they need to see concrete progress. And so that can be, they clearly couldn't do skill A and now they clearly can, whether that's a dive or something like that, it doesn't really matter, but there needs to be an obvious before I couldn't and then a now I can. The other aspect is performance stuff. So if you can show them that they're taking less strokes, if you show them that they're going faster in some way, and it can be lots of different ways, it doesn't really matter, but whenever there's concrete numbers, that tends to be a lot more helpful than just abstract concepts. When you think about video games, we've got especially boys that'll play them for hours on end, but they get concrete feedback every step of the way, and that's why they continue to do them. And they actually work pretty hard at them. So it's not a work ethic thing. It just has to be worth it to them. So if you can show them numbers, that can get them excited and interested and continue to get better at swimming. And then thirdly, you want to try to build their confidence as a swimmer. And so again, it kind of comes back to the same thing. Show them progress, make them believe that they can actually do these things, and that's going to get them a lot more excited and willing to work and want to come back. And you can do this in any way you want. You just want to stick with the concept of how can I get improvement and how can I make it as tangible as possible so that they can see improvement really early. And that's going to get them excited to continue to work and continue to show up. Second is have fun. And obviously, swimming's not always super fun. You can't really always talk to people. You got to do relatively hard things, and it's somewhat repetitive. However, that doesn't mean you can't make it fun. So things like racing, training equipment, novelty, so doing different things that they haven't done before, competition, different challenges, water games. It sounds silly, but there was a basketball hoop that could be placed next to the pool, and I've seen college swimmers, after really hard practice, go spend 5-10 minutes in there, and they had a lot of fun, and something as simple as that can keep them coming back. When I was in college, I would show up to the pool early to play six square because it was really fun, and that got me coming back. And I know we all feel like we don't have enough time, but 5 to 10 minutes at the end of practice to play a game a couple times a week might be all that it takes to get some swimmers to keep coming back because they really, really enjoy that aspect of it, and it's something they can look forward to at the end of practice. And again, while it feels like you don't have time, what do you really have to lose? If you can keep kids engaged, if you can keep them happy, you can keep them having fun, that 5 to 10 minutes a couple times a week is definitely worth the investment. And there are no rules here in terms of what's fun. And so whatever fits within your coaching style, whatever fits within your personality, just finding ways to keep kids having fun in some way is critical, especially when they have other options that are definitely a lot more fun. You want to give them reasons to come back to the pool. Another issue, especially with new swimmers, is make it accessible. So if their first swimming experience is 10 by 100s, they're probably not going to come back. So if you have someone that's interested in swimming and they want to give it a shot, meet them where they're at and find a way to help them feel good about what they're doing right now and get them making progress over time. Putting someone into something that's really difficult because that's the way we do things is probably not a great way to get people excited about swimming. Along those lines, we have the traditional fare in swimming practice, such as 10 200s. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with 10 200s. It works. It helps swimmers continue to improve, and it helps them continue to get better. But when we think about it, it's not very much fun. And if they're doing that all the time, every day, they're not going to be having much fun, and they're probably not going to be seeing much progress because there aren't a whole lot of ways to see progress with 10 200s or whatever the equivalent set is. So is there another way that you can get a similar benefit at least some of the time to mix things up? Could you do some sort of racing and then easy and then kind of get the volume in that way? Could you do some sort of circuit? It might not be a perfect physiological match for what you're trying to do, but if it keeps kids engaged, that's going to be worth it because they have to show up in order to get better. You can substitute it in a quarter of the time, half the time, whatever makes sense with what you're doing. The second aspect of the set is that there's not an obvious sense of accomplishment about it. Other than simply finishing it, you want to give them more concrete ways and concrete things that they can achieve along the way so that they feel like they're actually accomplishing something rather than just surviving. So you could add skills to it, you could add different drills to it, you could add times to it, you could add stroke counts to it, you could add dolphin kicks to it. You just want them to feel like they've actually learned something, and you want them to feel like they've accomplished something along the way. That's key to helping them stay engaged and feel good about their swimming rather than just trying to survive. So whenever you can enhance your sets so that swimmers feel like they're accomplishing and achieving more, that's always going to benefit you and them in the long run. So to recap, if your problem is engagement and interest, you don't need to design the perfect plan to develop an Olympian. That's not your problem. You need to have engaged kids who actually show up to practice ready to get better. And engaged kids who show up to practice are going to swim really, really fast, regardless of the specifics of your training plan. And if they want more or they need more and they're asking for more, you can always do that. If you start out with asking for everything, you're going to run a lot of people off. So do what's good for now, get them engaged, get them excited, and then you can go from there. That's actually playing the long game because you're keeping kids in the sport and you're keeping kids excited about swimming. And then when they're excited about their progress, they're excited about swimming, you can start doing more and more of the traditional stuff. So the biggest takeaway is if we have engagement problems, we have interest problems, they're ultimately our responsibility, and simply expecting swimmers to become more engaged or to become more enthusiastic isn't necessarily going to happen. We've got to find more rewarding and more fun ways of doing the same things so that we get the same outcomes, but we do it in a way that swimmers want to do more and more and more of it, and they want to keep coming back. If we can do that, we're going to have happy swimmers and we're going to have fast swimmers. So hopefully that was helpful for you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, keep it simple.